So in the last video, I scaped this little DOOA on the left, and when it came to maintenance, I took it off the shelf and I kind of dropped it on the floor and cracked it. So I'm going to be rebuilding it today, but I figured it's probably best to do something that doesn't involve water, so it's not going to be as heavy and awkward. So today I'm going to be building a terrarium, and the products that I'm going to be using are some earth and water products. So there's the terrarium soil and the cushion moss, which just looks absolutely beautiful. So I'm really excited to work with it. The wood is just going to be some scrap pieces of bogwood, and the rock is going to be some Sirius stone, but you're probably not really going to see this. It's just pretty much going to be used to give it height. So this tank measures 15 by 15 by 25, and it's quite a tricky thing to scape. So it did take me a little while just to get something that I was happy with. But yeah, it was just a case of playing around and seeing what I could come up with, whilst also trying to smash it up some more in the process. So after some playing around, I was finally happy with the scape, and now it's time to glue it into position. This just stops it moving whenever you perform maintenance or you're moving it around. As you can see, some of the pieces of wood and stone in here are a little bit loose. So I'm just going to put some cotton pad just between the contact points, put a little bit of cyanoacrylate super glue on that, and it'll just create a strong bond between the two. And it just means that it's not going to fall to pieces if you knock it. And at this point, it was time to start thinking where I wanted the built-up areas to be. Obviously, with designing a terrarium, you've kind of got to think a bit more in sort of 3D terms. I find them quite tricky to do, and I find that you've really got to visualise past the scape. So to get some height and also to form a drainage layer, I'm just going to fill the bottom with some gravel. So I used about 3 or 4 cups of gravel just to build some height at the back. Doing this rather than just putting soil straight into the terrarium means that water's not going to sit and stagnate at the bottom and mix in with the soil. It's got this drainage layer and it allows more aeration to happen, so it kind of just stops things kind of rotting. You'll kind of get like a bad smell if you just kind of let the soil sit and stagnate in the water. So we're using the pebbles or the gravel to build up a little drainage layer, and also it adds height as well. And then we're just going to fill on top of that with some soil. So this is a special terrarium mix soil. I think the majority of it is just built up of cocoa fibre, which is great because it just helps with holding a lot of humidity. So this is where you kind of got to think in terms of 3D and see the areas that you want to build up. This is how you're then going to create depth in your terrarium and have like different heights and different levels. And this is obviously where the moss is all going to sit as well. So it was just a case of like filling in the areas that I knew I wanted the moss, and just sort of like brushing it and padding it down into position. And it kind of creates the, I guess, like the mountain structure, if you like. And again, once I was happy with that and I was happy with the layout and everything, I sprayed it down. I figured it was probably better to spray the soil than spray last, because I didn't want to spray directly onto the moss in case it kind of like drowned it a little bit. So I just dampened the soil, and this will just help with humidity. And then next it was time to plant the cushion moss. Now this is just absolutely stunning, and it's just really vibrant green. And this is all locally sourced in the UK as well. So I'm really hoping that this survives, because I've not had much luck with cushion moss before. I have frogs and I've used it in a frog tank, and it just died within a couple of days. So I'm really hoping that I have better luck with this. I did use tweezers initially to plant this, but I found it was actually just easier to just push it in with my fingers. So I was doing it in different like size clumps, not for any particular reason, but it kind of does just fall apart. One thing that I did do is because the moss, it was kind of growing quite high. I kind of cut the roots off the bottom. You can tell the roots because they kind of grow like a browny beige colour, and it's only the top portion of the moss itself that's actually green. So I think you can just cut the roots off. You can kind of see a little pile of them in the right hand side of the screen there. So I think you can just cut them off, and it just means that the moss doesn't sit so high, and you can kind of push it and get it closer and tighter to your scape. Now I just wanted to add in a little sandy foreground. The way that the scape kind of turned out, it's almost got like a little cave in the front, or it's maybe like a fallen tree type thing with like a little, almost like a little entrance or a little cave. So I really wanted to just highlight that fact. So I put in some gravel again, just to help with drainage. And then I topped that off with some La Plata sand. And then I just kind of brushed that into place and just sort of pushed it back into the sort of little cave entrance. I also think it just kind of brightened it up because it could be quite dark with all the wood. And then I just added in some smaller grain stones or gravel and just sort of like push these up to the side of the hardscape, just like what you're doing when you're aquascaping. Again, it just adds a bit more detail and a little bit more sort of area of interest and just makes it look really natural. And that was pretty much it. But the last thing I wanted to add was just some little, they're just like little bits of torn bark really. And it was just to create some scale, again, add more interest and just a little bit more detail. I think it just really ties the scape together. So yeah, I just sort of like sprinkled these around. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one.